In our world of hearsay and drama and rumour, gossip, it can be really difficult to know a true person, who they actually are behind the masks. Britney Spears is possibly one of the most famous people in the world, and I wanted to set myself a task today to do a reading for her, which is cutting through all of the facade and just looking as objectively as I can at this person's natal chart. And Britney, if you're watching this, then I'm really interested to get to know you, the real you, and to see where you came from at the point of birth, when the wheels of your life started turning. And it's important to remember that you didn't come in to a blank canvas. You came in to parents who have their own wheels turning, their own dynamic, their own story. And this birth chart then fits in on top of all of that. So we're never the beginning. We are always the end of a long, long, long chain. So even before there was any fame, this person is a product, as we all are, a product of our parents. So I've got her chart in front of me. Got it from a few different sources. And I'm doing this largely because it's your birthday, the 2nd of December. So there is this Sagittarius sun, and I know this all too well myself, and it's this spark of life. It's fire. It's got so much potential in it when it comes into existence. It can do anything. And it's a primal, pure channel, but it can easily be misdirected and used by others. And one interesting thing about Britney is this is a person who I have not engaged with since I was a child, and this was a very important character for me in my development. And so I don't have any recent idea of what's happening, but she's appeared on my algorithms, and I'm thinking, okay, there's something happening, and let's just see what I can see within the chart itself without the story that's behind it. And firstly, I was really surprised how young she is. Born in 1981, she's just 10 years older than me. And when I was young, I saw her as being much older, because I was a child. And this is an interesting thing about perception, that we need to realize that we can never rely on the opinion of another person to define us, because they're all coming with their own story. I came at Britney Spears as a child, seeing her through a child's eyes, whilst she was a teenager, and thinking that was an old person. And this goes across the board in life. There's no one that can really see anything without their own conditioning laid on top, creating an image. So I'm going to read the chart as I would do for any reading I was doing, and here I can see just the most, it's really charming, it's a really beautiful chart, and it's incredibly concentrated. I always start from the ascendant and move around the degrees of the chart through the houses. So in your first house you have Libra, and this is something, and it's very sweet for me to see this, because I have this same situation in which the chart is flipped upside down. This is a terribly easy person to misunderstand, and it's so much purer than we could imagine, because the opposite of Libra is Aries. The first house is home to Aries. And Britney's chart is completely the reverse. The first chart is Libra. So we're starting from the impersonal planets in the personal houses, the impersonal signs in the personal houses. So you could argue, I don't like saying this, but the largest ego, the biggest sense of self, is with Aries, because it's the first sign of the zodiac. It has this idea that it's number one, it's the first, it doesn't have a comparison. It's really a confident place to be, and you're just in competition with yourself, really, and you just move with will, like Mars. It's a fire, cardinal fire moving. And the flip side of that, the opposite house to that, is Libra in the 7th house. And Libra needs the other person to be okay. It's the people pleaser of the chart. It needs everyone else to be okay for it to feel okay. Britney has this in her 1st house. So it's a flipped perspective, because it's me and my ego is defined by everybody else being okay. This is already a sign of someone who's here to please a lot of people. And it's a sign that's, this 1st house activity is a sign of heavy lifetime activity within the first 7 years of life, because she has Pluto and Saturn conjunct. What does that remind me of? Well, it's what's happening right now. We have Saturn and Pluto conjunct in Capricorn. So I'm not surprised if she's going through a particularly tough time now, because those very factors are being enacted now. And Saturn is control. Who controls us? Who created our framework, our boundaries? And that's in Libra. And Libra, it's very difficult to know your boundaries of where you are and where other people begin. And this is happening in her childhood. And then Pluto is sitting very close to this. Pluto in Libra generations are people who are very concerned with making amazing relationships and evolving that dynamic and exploding them as well. So it's very tumultuous and just almost like sifting for gold. And in Libra, it's the perfectionist. So it's wanting just the best of the best. And that means a lot of families breaking up, breaking down, dissolving. No, it has to be better. We can do better. And you put these are the two heaviest energies, arguably, in the sky, Pluto and Saturn, and you sit them on top of each other and you put them in the 1st house in a sign like Libra. And you have a person there who has way too much pressure so early on in life. And incredibly closely following, we have at 2 degrees of Scorpio, we have Jupiter. Again, Jupiter is conjunct at this moment with Saturn and Pluto. I'm not surprised she's coming forth and presenting as somebody for us all to have an interest in, because she's a reflection, embodied reflection of this particular conjunction, triple conjunction. It's a bit wide for Saturn and Jupiter, but with Pluto hanging there in the middle, I know I've been engaging with this a lot this year, this heavy Pluto undercurrent of the underworld, of our psychology, of our belief systems, of the dark side of ourselves. And Saturn about control, boundaries, borders, limitation. And then Jupiter is a flamethrower. It's you've seen when you light a lighter and then you spray it with deodorant. Anybody do that when they were a teenager? And it just spreads fire like wild, and that's what she has going on in her 1st and then the first couple of degrees of her 2nd house. 2nd house being, again, this is the flip. This is how we learn about I almost want to say she's here to break down the dichotomy between the two, because in her 2nd house, which is the home of Taurus, she has Scorpio, which is its polar opposite, both involved with values and systems and appreciation of the darker things in Scorpio, appreciation of the gilded, golden and shiny things in Taurus. And so she's got a value system which, you know, it's about physical possessions. It's not about death in the second house, but she has her Jupiter there in Scorpio expanding the wealth. It's very auspicious, you know. It's a, of course she's going to be an extremely wealthy person. Jupiter in the second house. And the fact that it's in Scorpio, of course, it's going to be related to sexuality and how she can move and the physicality of the body and expression. And then in Sagittarius, she's got another stellium that's very, very, very masculine, the third house. And the third house is ruled by Gemini, the opposite. So Gemini being about communication, about more small journeys, mental activity, learning, just much more light, and she's got the heavy, you know, heavy heady Sagittarius philosopher's archetype playing out in the small and the fun and the kind of Gemini, bubbles, fluffy. And I really am intrigued by Mercury conjunct the Sun. Mercury being our mind, the Sun being our creative self-expression, and she has both conjunct. So how she thinks and how she expresses. It's a simple person. Not stupid, just simple. Like, what you see is what you get. And there's almost there's a lack of defensiveness with Sun in Sagittarius in the third house, where it's not defending an ego, because it's having too much fun playing with ego, playing with identities. And again, all of this happening in the first 3 houses of the entire chart. So all in the early life, all of these things come into the forefront very early on, and it comes from a self place. It really does. It comes from something she really wants to do. This isn't this isn't forced upon her, and yet it is. The Saturn being the very first hurdle in the entire chart is indicating that it's a big issue with pleasing other people and other people putting restrictions on you. But what she wants to do is be seen, express, dance, be physical, have a kind of just in play around. And it can be really frustrating when the thing you really want to do is the thing other people want you to do, but they want you to do it in a way that pleases them. And it's difficult for a Libra rising to really want to be a rebel, you know? And also, you know, she's so beautiful, and that's the Libra ascendant, you know, this balance and this wanting harmony and wanting this. I just see it as such a simple person, just really, really pure. And then, I mean, she's got 4 things in Sagittarius, and that's another reason why we're picking up on her now. She's got Neptune there, and then, yeah, the thing with the quadrants, we can divide them up into the first 3 houses being the subjective self. So, how I see me. Wow, I'm alive. Woo! This is cool. And then the next 3, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th houses being the subjective other. So you're in the playground and you say, oh, well, your mum's taller than my mum, and I'm bigger than him, and I like this food and you like that food. And it's subjectively seeing, wow, there's difference in the world. And then the 7th, 8th, and 9th is the objective others. So how you objectively perceive other people, and with much more balance and much more, you know, this is more moving through the teenage years, learning to respect other people, learning to see things from others' perspectives, and realizing, oh my goodness, like there's potentially 2 people can both be right about with different perspectives about the same thing. Oh, this is a bit more complicated than I'd realised. And then from the 10th until the 12th, this is the objective self. This is the ability to look at yourself and objectify yourself. And this isn't in a sexual or a, minimizing yourself into some commodity. This is being able to see yourself and all of your games and all the games you've been playing and all of the timelines you've been wrapped up in throughout your life, and all of the conditioning that we have and the stories that we believe in, and being able to see, oh, it was a story, oh, that's cool, it was all a game. And then we go around the whole cycle over and over throughout our lives, but with more and more knowledge and more, and we grow as we go around. And with Britney, there's nothing happening in the objective self, and in the top, above the horizon, there is nothing. Everything is underground. Yeah, because in Sagittarius, she has the Sun and Mercury conjunct. And then there is this... And then we can move through and we can see her Venus. And Venus in the 4th house is about home. It's about wanting to have a perfect home. The thing with this Venus is that this is again our values. This is the ruler of, or it's at home in Taurus. And Venus is wanting balance. It's wanting beauty and stability in Capricorn, and wanting to have a solid foundation and a structure. But with all of that happening in up in the air of Libra, and then flailing arrows in Sagittarius, the grounded home reality is fighting with some quite strong energies to come into fruition. It's too tender and soft. So it's like a private desire for true comfort and true home. And then in the 5th house of play, she's got her moon in Aquarius, and the moon in Aquarius, you can see it a mile off, and you can see it in a way that a person just doesn't seem emotional. It seems like things just can pass them by. They can transcend anything. This is an 11th house theme, manifesting in the house of play and just not taking things too seriously. And the moon is really, really healing in this sense. And the thing with Aquarius, though, is that it can also become detached and disassociated. Very easy to disassociate in Aquarius. And then I see kind of a lostness after that when we come into a big open space for the rest of the chart. It's just waiting for something to happen. Nothing is engaged above the horizon. It's just a floating. North Node in Cancer, again, we're directed home. I feel like this Venus and then the North Node, they're in opposition, and it is that softening into the emotions and opening up in a much more small and homely way. And it being okay to let down the guard, let down the facades. And the facades have been fine up to this point, as long as they've not been taken for the self. The really sad thing is when people play around with ego and then they believe it as something real, when it's all an illusion. And I think sometimes celebrities can help themselves when they use aliases, when they use fake names, because it's almost then becomes very easy to separate from what's happening behind the scenes to what's happening on the stage. And then we have Mars in Virgo, and this Virgo Mars is action through service. yeah, there's definitely a Christian person in this really heartfelt desire to make people happy. Just there's certainly self-sacrifice happening all through, which I think can be overlooked by the Sagittarius bigness and expansiveness. It can, like, this person could never be a diva. Not really. It doesn't know it's what it wants enough. It's not. Mars is weak in Virgo. It's not, you know what you want and you're gonna get it. Like, even that kind of story looks a bit trite. It looks a bit sweet. It doesn't have much weight behind it. And this is her evolution, is her learning to use the will. Learning to use the will to express what is truly felt. And the problem is, what do you really feel, Britney? What do you feel? Because it's been suppressed from birth. You've been able to put yourself in a box and to be everything to anyone. And it's like, as you go through your next cycle of this whole thing, it's like, what are you going to do the next time? I mean, I wonder what you did do on your Saturn return. And again, like, this is where it's then interesting to look into a person's life and see the exact dates and things that happened. But I already know right now that Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter are all being triggered by the triple conjunction happening. And going from a 12th house Mars of fire and action and will, in the 12th house, I mean, you can't get much weaker willed than that, the 12th house being about other people, about the collective, and it's the house of self-undoing. It's the house of transcendence, but also self-sabotage, and it's a healing ending space, and it is the subconscious. This is the house of Pisces, and to have Virgo there, the healing hands with Mars, the will to action, is a really good sign. It's a good sign for an opportunity to heal the self. But the only way this will be able to have any weight and actually work is if there is enough self-love present. So the tender spots can then be the Libra and just that not feeling good enough in Libra, not feeling beautiful enough, not feeling worthy, not feeling that you're doing enough ever. And that turns into self-sabotage and self-abuse. And really, I would just engage much more from a perspective of objectifying yourself and laughing, because this isn't a stupid person. This is a person who's been able to play the game very well naturally without having to try, and then has the opportunity to then fly. And the problem is when it then comes back round and tries to continue doing that thing that it was doing as a child and trying to please everyone, it's like they're already happy, they're already there. You got your lifetime achievement award in the bag before the age of 25. It's the first quarter of the chart, everything has happened. And now it's just really, enjoying and finding an outlet for the passion. But it's all there. But it does become a lot more about, I mean, the curveball in all of this is talking to a person who wasn't touched by any other humans, but this is a person raised in our modern world who obviously had a lot of people's hands all over them from birth, working with this very obvious energy of success, this very fortunate person, and then that has been cultivated and shaped, and that has probably meant it's extremely difficult to find yourself within. And the essence that I see pulled forward is the self-healer, the really self-love, deeply self-loving person, very humorous and very coy and very playful, just extremely playful, just never stopping playing, and a really wonderful friend. It can be so difficult to have friends and to keep them and to trust, or to see any point in trusting people, because it's much easier to keep it much more light and fun and just move on to the next ones. But that Venus in Capricorn is wanting something very solid. It's wanting something really that's for life. It's wanting a dog. It's wanting a And the same with the North Node in Cancer. It's wanting Cancer themes of home, of nest, of a real foundation. And this can be really... It's hard for a Sagittarius and with the Aquarius moon to sometimes get fascinated with water signs and trying to get some kind of depth, when it's not about depth with this, it's about expansion. This is a lot of air and a lot of fire. So, and it's going to be there for the rest of your life. So just finding positive ways to channel that, which are not destructive to yourself or others. And yeah, I mean, it's a natural dancer. It's absolutely a dancer. And just, yeah, unashamedly, I feel so sorry for... This is the fame. This is the chart that everybody would be desperate for, because it's so affluent and it all happens when you're young. You get all this appreciation, all this money, but then it doesn't give you a manual for what happily ever after looks like. And that's the part of the story that society is really wanting to understand, and that is why we've put Britney on a pedestal, and why she's one of those examples of the ideal woman, ideal feminine, ideal embodiment of success. And then we scrutinize and scrutinize and scrutinize, and we do this with all successful people for that reason, because we're trying to understand what happens if somebody gets everything, and then what, and then where do we go, and how do we use it. But this comes back to the Mars, comes back to action and will. And yeah, is that your ideal feminine? Having a weak-willed woman, a woman where her will is not able to be harnessed until the 12th house, when all of the other archetypes have come and fed on this person before they've had a chance to really use their will. Even if their will was to be a dancer and a musician and to be on stage. It's a paradox. It's a paradox. And such is life. So I hope you've enjoyed investigating Britney's chart with me. I think she's really sweet and just really nice to spend time with. And that's what it feels like when you read a chart. You feel like you're spending time with the true person. A person stripped back of all of their layers of protection and of identification and perception. You know, and it shows you something truthful. I can no longer think of her as... I can no longer be surprised to find out that she's young as she is. And after looking at this chart, it does look like an old soul, because it's someone who's achieved so much so young. But yeah, if you would like a reading, please send me a message. And if you have any other celebrities you'd like me to read, or anyone in particular with an interesting story, I'd love to go into them in more detail from this perspective. Because these are all they, as Kate Temper says, the brand new ancients. These are the new gods, and we called her the Princess of Pop. She was one of our pin-ups. We used to really admire, well, we still apparently do admire the royal family. And now we can observe the commoner wearing a crown, and that could be us. And the more and more we can go into somebody so inaccessible, and we're breaking down all the barriers where now we can really see into that person's soul. It might seem potentially an invasive or private thing, but I think it's much more of a service to be able to see somebody's true self and soul than it is to bolster their own idea of themselves. It's very easy to get lost in this world. So, yeah. Lots of positive things to come for the future if we use our will in the right direction. So, yeah. Please like and subscribe and share, and enjoy the rest of your week.